Good evening, USM Portland, anyone who's visiting us. My name is Noel Leah, and I'm here to introduce Pacintu. Pacintu is a multicultural children's chorus based here in Portland, Maine. I've been a part of it for 10 years, since I was in 6th grade. I'm a student here at the University of Southern Maine studying political science, and on a good day, we represent up to like 17 different countries. So we're very diverse. I've really enjoyed this course because it has given me the opportunity to go to places where I could speak on behalf of my country and all the great things that we do with Pacintu. So welcome, Pacintu, and I hope you guys enjoy the songs.
start giving. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's just gonna make a better day, just you and me. Sending a heart so they know that someone cares. Someone cries for help, we're not being vain. We can let them suffer. We cannot turn away. Right now, we need a helping hand. We are the world. We are the world. We are the children. We are the children. We are the ones to make a better day. So let's start giving. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's to make a better day, just you and me. When you're down and out, it seems no hope at all. But if you just believe, there's nowhere we can go. Well, let us realize that a change can only come when we stand together as one. We are the world. We are the world. We are the children. We are the children. We are the ones to make a better day. So let's start giving. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's to make a better day, just you and me. We all need somebody that we can lean on. When you wake up, look around and see that your dreams on. When an earthquake will help you make it through the storm. When the flow of race magic having to stand on. We are the world connected by a common bond. When the radio isn't on, you can hear the song. I got a light in the dark road you're walking on. I signposts to find dreams you thought was gone. So wanna help you with the obstacles you stumble on. So wanna help you rebuild after the rum's gone. We are the world connected by a common bond. Love, the whole planet singing along. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a better day. So let's start giving. Let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's to make a better day, just you and me. We are the world. We are the world. We are the children. We are the children. We are the ones to make a brighter day. So let's start giving. Let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's to make a brighter day, just you and me. It's to make a brighter day, just you and me. It's to make a brighter day, just you and me.
So are you warmed up now? Okay. Thank you so much to the Jacinto Choir. I want to welcome the Honorable Shelley Pingree. Thank you for joining us. And I also want to welcome our esteemed legislators from the Maine legislature. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank our university leadership for being here and supporting us. Thank you so much for being here. We can't do this without our faculty and especially our staff, so please stand up, faculty and staff, and show who you are. And we're doing this for our students, so please welcome the Maine Law students in the house. First, let me thank my assistant, Maggie Fleming, and my wonderful muse, Lexi Morris, for helping me put all this together. And finally, I want to thank the esteemed judges who are here tonight. We have judges from our federal judiciary and from our Maine Supreme Judicial Court. Thank you for being here. So last year, you found out I was the new dean. And here I am again. I made it. One whole year. I am so happy to be the Dean of Maine Law, and I think you can appreciate why. I love it because we do fabulous things like justice for women. So good evening, and welcome to the 5th Annual Justice for Women Lecture at the University of Maine School of Law. I am so eager for you to hear our speaker. But before I introduce her, I have to tell you about this event through my eyes and in my own voice. Justice for Women is a signature event for Maine law. It owes its origin and vitality to Catherine Lee of Lee International. Through Kathy's vision and efforts and the tireless work of the Maine Law JFW team, Maine has had privileged access to women who are on the front lines of the global struggle for justice. JFW is not only a signature event for Maine Law, it represents a distinctive and novel program within the National Legal Academy. Through JFW, Maine Law has hosted Ruchira Gupta from India, Dr. Seema Samar from Afghanistan, Nobel Peace Laureate Lema Bowie from Liberia, and the Honorable Unity Dow from Botswana. These speakers have courageously addressed horrific issues ranging from the exploitation of women and girls through sex trafficking, to abuses against women and girls in conflict zones and war-torn countries. The common thread of all of these efforts with JFW is to identify and celebrate women who answer injustice with justice, with their efforts guiding us on our quest for a perfect society. We are honored to expand the JFW circle tonight to include Dr. Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. Persistent, abominable, a Holocaust, and camouflaged. These are descriptions of hunger, a silent yet treacherous killer. Hunger's very close companion is food insecurity. These two states of being, hungry and food insecure, are more prevalent both globally and locally than we care to admit or could possibly fathom. While Dr. Sibanda will give us a global perspective on food insecurity, we must recognize that food insecurity has reached epidemic proportion right here in Maine. First, let me define food insecurity. Food insecurity is the unreliable access to sufficient, affordable, nutritious food, accompanied by the reality that one does not know when or where one will get her next meal. Second, bear with me while I share some facts about food insecurity in Maine and nationally. Fact 1. 5,000 households in Cumberland County alone depend on food pantries every month. Fact 2. Not only is Maine third in the country for hunger, people going extended periods without access to food, but Maine ranks 12th in the nation for food insecurity. Fact 3. Maine ranks first in New England and 12th in the nation for the number of individuals struggling with hunger. Fact 4. 1 of every 4 children in Maine experiences food insecurity. Fact 5. Food insecurity is the preventable precursor to hunger. That is hard to hear. As humanists, eradication of food insecurity is a social, economic, and political imperative. Because of this, Justice for Women at Maine Law has focused this week's lecture series on facilitating direct, objective information flow in and among our communities, with the expectation that our efforts will promote ongoing activism to prevent food insecurity and hunger. To inform our discussion and activism, we call on Dr. Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. Dr. Sibanda of Zimbabwe is a global leader in the sustainable farming movement and the fight to end hunger and food insecurity. She coordinates policy research and advocacy programs aimed at making Africa a food and nutrition secure region. Dr. Sibanda is currently leading the multi-country Agriculture to Nutrition project aimed at addressing the question, what can agriculture do for nutrition? This project seeks to improve nutrition outcomes in smallholder farm families and poor households through tailored, nutrition-sensitive agriculture programs that ultimately benefit women of childbearing age and children in the first 1,000 days of life. Dr. Sibanda also serves as a trustee and advisor to numerous international food security-related initiatives and has been involved with the Farming First Global campaign, advocating for a holistic approach to sustainable agricultural development since 2008. In 2013, Dr. Sibanda was recognized as one of 7 women working to change the food system in honor of International Women's Day by the Food Think Tank. She also received the 2014 Farah Award and the 2013 Yara Prize Laureate in recognition of her effective entrepreneurial work and her contributions to agricultural development in Africa. More than all of these accolades, Dr. Sibanda is just, in a very few days, has captivated our community by showing us her true passion, educating for justice. Although soft-spoken, her aura is potent and graciously authoritative. She will make you lean in. Please help me welcome Dr. Lindiwe Majele Sibanda.
If my father, Johnson Majele Sibanda, was here with me, he would have said, whose child is that? My father, Majele, has no formal education. However, at the age of 82, He's now revered by his community as advisor to all who want to get into business, to all who want to get into politics. Oops. I am sorry. And he stands tall. And when I look back, I realize some of the values that he tried so hard to instill in all of us. If you talk to old men of my generation who were interested to get into his crawl, they will tell you, no wonder you girls are educated. Your father said, no college degree, no marriage. And we stuck to that. He also instilled in us values of hard work. He always said, hard work don't kill anybody, and the first job you're going to get is in the house, and when you graduate from the house, it's the farm. And nobody works outside before they get the qualifications that I'm going to give you for farming. No wonder I'm in the business of farming, now by choice. My father also instilled in all of us that every breath you take should be an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to teach. And I've just been wowed by the community that has given so much here in Maine. I've learned, and I do hope that I've been able to be true to my father's teachings and share with you what I have learned. But one thing I know for sure is that my dad got all this from his mother. She is and was the mother of all universities I've ever been to. Gogo Mayembe, as we all called her, was a giant in her community. She stood at 1.8 meters tall, taller than me. She woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning, always in prayer. And my dad loved his mom, and he says the reason why he didn't do much school is that he ran to the city to get a job so he could buy his mom a big queen-size bed that she would sleep on, and he did do that. But for me, when I reflect on Grandma's values, the way she brought us up, because without fail, we spent close to 3 months in a year helping her on her farm plot, which was just 2 acres, but it fed all of us. Every 3 months, we left the city to go during our school holidays for our second calling, which was the qualification of farming and training by Grandma. Only now I realize it was training on a job I would enjoy, and only now I realize it was to help her with the labor that she needed. But what was special in that 2-acre plot was that all our food came from that farm. It wasn't just the 5 children from my father's family. It was all the grandchildren who'd come from the city, from my grandmother's 6 children. In total, we were 18 grandchildren. And my dad will pack us at the back of his open truck, carry us to the family farm where we spent 3 weeks of school holidays, 3 times a year. What I enjoy about those memories is that Grandma would make sure that we got food, and the feeding times were the best times. So there would be the 18 grandchildren, but there will be other cousins from the neighboring community who would join us. And at any one time, we would be a homestead with over 25 people all under one roof. Food was in abundance, but there was no wastage. From the 2-acre plot, my grandmother would have sufficient corn and cornmeal that would be pounded and processed into our traditional mealie meal, which we used for breakfast porridge, for pap, for lunch, and for dinner. But with every meal, in those 3 meals, there was balance. The mealie meal porridge always had some peanut butter with it. The lunch pap, we would always have Grandma, if it was chicken she had slaughtered, this would be the free-ranging chicken from her backyard, she would carefully break the pieces to feed all 25 of us. Of course, his favorite son got the most, but we all got a piece. And what was special with those feeding moments is that there was a feeding station for the children who are under 5. There was a feeding station for the boys who are teenage boys because they did the cattle herding and they sat. And for us girls, there was a particular way of sitting. The right hand is what you use for eating. You use your left hand, it's tied at the back because you don't respect the food. So we had to sit on the floor with the left hand stretched out so that you lean on it, and then your feet are folded, and you're literally sitting on them, and you're using one hand, the right hand, to pick the food. The traditional pap meant that you pick the starch, roll it into a bowl, dip it into the beans, you pick a few beans, into the spinach, and then you eat. You don't pick the meat until the eldest in your ring has started the picking. The pieces were counted. Each child would have one piece. When you pick your piece, you put it on your left hand. And as the meal times were shush times, you would only take a small bite at a time, so that that one piece lasted the whole 20-minute period for feeding. The matron sat there, and she always sat with the feeding mothers. And at any one time, there would be one of the grandchildren who had a child who would be feeding a child of about 2 years, because they made sure that they stayed on the breast for up to 2 years. And grandma won't be eating, she'll be watching to see who is cheating, who is picking meat first, and that the mothers would feed their children first into the mother's mouth, then the next piece is theirs. And that was to make sure that these babies were adequately fed. We enjoyed because in between we could go out and grab fruit from the garden. There was an orchard in the 2-acre plot where we had mangoes, we had oranges, we had guavas, and we had strawberries. And throughout the year, whenever we visited, there was a fruit in season. And for fruits, you didn't have to ask for permission. We said that was from God to man, so you could have it anytime. At the end of the day, when the cattle came in, where we had to put them in a kraal so that they're safe from the wild animals at night, we would go and make sure they're all encrawled. But in the process, you had to grab a cow and milk straight into your mouth. And those were wonderful times. This was warm milk from God to man. That was our lingua for stealing, because what meant is, don't ask for permission, do it fast before grandma shouts that, what about my cows? So when I think of my grandmother, those are the memories I have. We didn't even have the food just in abundance when we were at the farm. When we went back to the city, the truck would be full of loads of dried meat, bags packed with the maize meal for us to enjoy in town, fruits that we harvested, sweet potatoes, watermelons, all the bounty harvest from the family farm. And that's what kept us going in the city. Unfortunately, my grandmother died, but she died at an age of 110, and we celebrated because all of us, up to this day, 25 years later, she is the reference point for food security. The family farm was taken over by a nephew, Moses. He hadn't done much school. He's the one who wanted to continue with farming because farming had become for those who hadn't made it to the city. We had our college degrees. I'm the only one, I think, in the bigger family who's going to study agriculture. Part of that is because I carry the name Majele. I'm the only one, which really has its roots in that my father, when he was born, my grandmother had been put in jail because her cattle had strayed into the neighbor's field, and my grandfather was nowhere to be found to pay the fine. So the name Majele in Zulu translates into a prison because that's where my dad was born. But I'm proud to carry that name because it has kept me connected to my roots and to my farming background. So Moses takes over the farm, and this is 1980 in Zimbabwe, and things are booming. The government wants to push for a green revolution. And what that means is that if you harvest your corn, you can take it to the Grain Marketing Board, where for every ton you harvest, you are paid 150 United States dollars equivalent. So what did Moses do? He cleared the whole 2-acre farm, removed all the orchards, removed all the sweet potato patches, removed everything and dedicated the 2-acre plot to corn. He made the money because government was giving free seed, free fertilizer. If you didn't have the money, you could take an advance. As long as you delivered to the marketing authority, they would deduct for the inputs from your deliveries. The yield went up. Moses was in the 5-ton club. You can imagine he would at some times have $1,000 in his pocket. The poverty line was $1 a day, which is $365 a year, and Moses was making 3 times that. Life was good. We rarely visited home because grandmother was there, but Moses bought himself a cell phone, he bought himself a bicycle, and he bought himself everything that he needed. But what that meant is that they depended on the market for all the other foods. And the corn was what was available. If the wife didn't have money, it meant corn for breakfast, corn for lunch, corn for dinner, and very little in between. Well, at least they were fed, and after all, in my culture, when you talk food, you are talking staple. And the staple in Zimbabwe and most of Southern Africa is corn. So if you've got that, you're fine. You've got food. What is your problem? Even if you've only got a tablespoon of beans, that's detail. You've got food. Your tummy is full. So this went on for a good 15 years until the government stopped providing the inputs and the markets crashed. If you delivered, you didn't get your money on time. But the other change was that instead of getting free education, which I benefited from during my time, everything needed money. It was fine when Moses was in the 5-ton club, 5 tons per hectare. But now it meant he had to pay for education for his young children, he had to pay for hospital bills, and the yields had gone from 5 tons to 3 tons to 1 ton to 800 kilograms per hectare, per 2 acres. Why? Because he could no longer afford the fertilizer and the quality seeds that he was getting through the government policies. Farming was no longer fun. Moses left the farm to go and look for employment in the city, but the people in the city need education if you are going to get a job. The minimum had become college degree, and because government had expanded the number of schools, we call it the minimum level becomes college. And yet when my dad started, the minimum was if you could read and write, you could get a job to get by. So the wife remained in the farm, and she had to do all the duties and became the backbone of agriculture for the family farm. And she was not the only one. What Moses did became common in the whole village. It wasn't just for Zimbabwe. This is a virus that spread all over Africa as a result of the economic structural adjustment programs. 2011, the Green Revolution is more cereal, more fertilizer, more hybrid seed, but we are rainfall dependent. We had the worst drought in our region in 1991-92. Our ministers met and said they need to move maize, corn, from countries of plenty to countries of deficit. They sat and said, we need a think tank. That led to the organization that I work for, FANAPAN, which was really established to say we need to harmonize our policies so that in times of drought we can move commodities from areas of plenty, from countries that have surplus to countries of deficit, so that we make sure we alleviate the food insecurity, but more important, people have food. And in most cases, it is just maize. We put together the network, but the clever thing that happened was that the elders who met then were sure that they needed government, private sector, research organizations, and farmers to be part of the network. What does FANPAN Network do? We carry out research that is there to inform policy so that our food security policies are evidence-based. When we've done the research, we convene dialogue platforms. And in those dialogue platforms, we make sure government is there, farmers are there, private sector, and the research community to share the evidence of what is happening in the country, what is happening in the region, and what are the policy options that will alleviate the suffering. The biggest challenge we are facing now is malnutrition. Because of our pursuit of the green revolution, because of our pursuit of a monoculture, where maize, the corn, has become the food, we in Africa have 161 million children who are stunted. That stunting is not just the height, but it's the brain that is dwarfed. What that means is that their cognitive capacity has been compromised because they don't get sufficient food, they don't get sufficient micronutrients, their mothers are dying during pregnancy, and if they do survive, they have anemia because of low iron. The milk, the meat is no longer available because these are assets that have been sold. The cattle have been sold to finance the health bill. The goats have been sold. The chickens have been slaughtered and they've stopped reproducing because even the last one has been sold off to finance an urgent need. Poverty is causing the food insecurity. And when we talk poverty at FANPAN, we have measured the asset base. We've looked at the human assets. We've looked at the number of people in the household who are able to farm, who are educated and can get out and send remittances, who can acquire knowledge and use technologies to modernize their farming. We've measured the social networks that are there, the institutions that are there to support the families. We've measured the physical assets, housing, the implements for farming. We've also measured the natural assets, the acreage, the quality of the soil that these households have access to. We've also looked at remittances and financial assets and given a score to households so that we can provide interventions that are targeted. Because unless we deal with the poverty, we are going to create a society of welfare cases. We're going to create a society where we give food aid and we don't lift people out of poverty so that they can self-help. So what we have done is we give a score. We identify households that are sitting at the center of the table and can cope. We have households, because of the current drought in 2016, it's one of the worst droughts, worse than the 1991-92 drought. We have households that are falling off the table. Unless we rescue them, first with food aid, but then the assets they need to go back into productive farming, because this is the only business they know. Then we have a proportion, the third leg, of welfare cases. Those are really in an acute stage. And in most cases, food on a permanent, reliable, affordable basis is the only way. These are some of the arrangements that we've put in place as a network to help Moses, to help him go back to the business he knows most, because being in the city is not going to help him. Nobody wants to house him anymore because the income for city dwellers has gone down. But what we have to worry about is the children in the first 1,000 days. If we don't deal with the stunting, if we don't make sure that mothers are empowered with the knowledge they need and with the nutrients they need during the first 1,000 days, which is from conception to the time the child attains their second birthday. That's how we count the 1,000 days. This is the window of opportunity where we can reverse the effects of stunting or eradicate them. Any time after that, the returns are limited. This then begs the question, what type of agriculture should we be pursuing? In this era of climate change, we need to be climate-smart farmers. We need to invest in irrigation so that we don't depend on rain-fed agriculture. We need to invest in research so that the seeds that we are growing are climate-proofed. They are relevant to the climate that's already changed. But more important, we need to build resilience in our communities. Climate change is a global challenge. Hunger is a global challenge. Malnutrition is a global challenge. I don't want to live in a world where 1 in 2 people will have low cognitive capacity because I won't be able to learn and engage and do what my father said is the whole reason of breathing. You give, you take, and you are empowered, and that's what his development agenda is. Surely we can do something about it. At FunPan, we speak about messengers who are equipped with research evidence. We speak about the message that is evidence-based, and we speak about dialogue platforms where we convene and use the evidence to influence policy. Speaking to Mainers, this is a platform that can make a difference. Because unless we can talk about the issues that affect us, unless we can use the evidence that we collect, we validate, and we equip the people that are affected by these policies to engage head-on with the issues, with the policymakers, in a productive manner, whereby we hold our leadership to account. We follow through when they've taken a political decision. That's a line we do not cross because we've elected them into power to make those political decisions. But when they've made the political decisions, we never give up. We get our researchers to continue documenting the best practices from other countries, bringing that experience to these countries, and making sure we solve our problems. It's a global issue. Moses is waiting for answers. But one thing I know when I get home, when my father meets me and says, "What did you learn?" I will tell him, I met President Cummings from the University of Southern Maine, who said, "We used to be proud as the United States of America, as leaders in education. We have lost the race." I will tell my dad that I'm proud to have been part of the community of Maine because I met the mayor and I got the key to the city. I will tell my father that I'm proud because I was able to participate in the launch of the first food charter, a charter that speaks to safe, affordable food for all. I'm proud to be associated with people who are forward-looking and who want to cater for the world. I'll tell my dad I went to the Good Shepherd Food Bank. I learned that in times of plenty, you should be like Mainers who feed Mainers. I've learned that you should be a food bank that says no to junk food and sets a benchmark that they will want to be 80% fresh commodity food bank. I'll tell my dad I had the opportunity to meet hunger fighters at St. Mary's Hall. They asked me difficult questions. They wanted to know, how do you avoid food losses? I had no answers. They told me they are facing challenges with transportation of commodities from and to their farms. And I said, that's exactly what we are facing and grappling with in Africa. I thought these guys had all the answers, so we are one. I'll tell my dad I met Somali Bantu community who pride in producing food for their community by farming, and they see farming as a way of exercise. They see farming as a profession that brings dignity to people, and they see farming as a way of relating to their own community as they sing along when they are working the land and carrying the produce to the market. They feel their dignity has been restored. There was, however, a difficult question, and the question was, food systems are complex. They are about culture. How do we bring respect to those we seek to help through food aid, yet we want them to appreciate that we want to meet them halfway with the right type of food that is close to their culture, but also that adds value to them and not what we don't want to use. I learned about rooftop gardening. I learned from a community of women, both at the Good Shepherd Food Bank, but also here in Maine. I picked up a new term, the new Mainers. I learned there are some champions, women new Mainers, like Fatuma, who are leading in their communities, like Mufalo, who say May is our month. We are going to showcase what immigrant women can do. They are trailblazers in this community of Maine. I'm proud to have been part of that community and to have shared a meal in Betty's home, where women to women were able to share what it takes to be a leader, not just in the home, but in the community and in the whole of the country and the world. I'm excited with the encounters I had with young people. I've found some champions. Going to Daring School wasn't just the key to the city. I found there is a school here in Maine where 30 home languages are accommodated under one roof, and there's respect for all cultures. I found children who pride themselves in dedicating a day in their lives to package meals that are given to suffering communities outside the United States. I went to Waynflete School, where I engaged with champions who wanted to know, who are already positioning themselves for leadership in the world, not just in the country. And they want to know what is the difference. And they embrace the fact that we are a global community and we can learn from each other. I went to the Mitchell Institute, and I'll tell my father, Majele, that you can be Mr. Mitchell. You're already giving. Let's document. You can give to your community and you can grow your community. I went to Tree Street. I'll urge you all to get there. That was a life-changing experience, to see children from all walks of life walk together hand in hand, share their life experiences, but then get back and say, can I be like you? I want to be like you. I have learned a lot, and I've been touched by the community. Speaking at Bates College, in a room full of students who want to understand the global challenge, I can only say we are going to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. They say no to poverty, no to hunger, yes to education, yes to climate solutions, but more important, international partnerships, I must. Let me end by paying tribute. This is about women. I shared with other women that my women mentors tell me, in hell, there is a place where women who don't love other women will ban and ban and ban and ban. Justice for Women, Kathy Lee, you are not going to ban. Thank you so much.
Good thing for that.
I am not done yet. Dean Conway, you are not going to ban. It's all about women. Thank you.
We now have time for some questions. There is a mic in this aisle and a mic in that aisle, and you can line up and present your questions, and Dr. Sibanda will respond.
I want to first start off by saying, does it go up? Doesn't matter. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your vast knowledge with us. It's really an honor to have you in the state. Thank you. I wanted to hear a little bit more about how climate change affects food insecurity and your organization's view on the issue of climate change. Yeah.
We've got a slogan, actually two. Climate change is real. Yeah? And when the choir sings, "They are the world," nothing about climate change without the youth, because it's your generation that will have to face the consequences. It's real now, particularly for us in Africa, because what it has done already is that we are experiencing erratic rainfalls. We're experiencing more frequent droughts. We're experiencing things that never used to happen. And I'll give you the example of just temperature. We feel that we used to go to plant every year without fail in Zimbabwe in November. 11 November was planting season. If you haven't brought your inputs by October, forget it. You won't find them in the market. But now, as I speak this year, the farmers went to plant last week. That's when the rains, the proper rains that guarantee a return. But we know that frost is going to bite in 2 months' time. So this year, disaster year. But this drought cannot be what we call climate change. It's about changes in climate over a longer period, both in temperature and in rainfall. And one thing that science tells us is that come year 2030, we're going to experience at least 30% to 60% decline in the cereals that we depend on. the research my organization has done, we've tried to download our global climate models to predict what will happen in 2050. The question we asked is, the places where we are growing our corn, will they still be viable? And most of those are going to be hot spots. We are not going to get anything. We better move to millet and sorghum fast. Next question is, what type of farmer will survive in those conditions? We need new technologies. So what we say at FunPan, adapt now, but adapt in a responsible way, where you're reducing the emissions of greenhouse gases from agriculture. Agriculture is predicted to emit up to 30% of the world's global greenhouse gases. But we can mitigate if we have the right technologies. And that's what we need to invest our monies for research on. That's why we need finance for our farmers to be able to access those technologies. And we also need to provide training, because we need a new way of doing business. We need climate-smart agriculture now. That's why for the United Nations negotiations, FunPan says, no agriculture, no deal.
Hi there. Thank you so much for your wonderful talk. I was wondering if you would address for a moment the tensions that I've seen here in Maine and in other development work that I have done between entrepreneurship and not-for-profit work. So there was a statistic that you missed. There are more not-for-profits in Maine per capita than any other state in the union. And there is a limited pile of funding. And I have noticed that the funding either goes to the farmers or it goes to the not-for-profits. And it's not that those need to be in competition, but how do we develop entrepreneurship models so that farmers can farm effectively? And how do we bring entrepreneurship, considering the tensions that we have in the not-for-profit development model?
It's a burning question in the South, where I come from. I love your smile. It's a question globally, and what I like about the Sustainable Development Goals is that goal number 17 talks about partnerships. No one can do it alone. We need each other. And there's a big slogan, no one must be left behind between now and 2030. We are in it together. Now, for profit, the $1 million question to every farmer is, why are you farming? You can't produce everything on your farm that you need. There are bills that will have to be paid. And what we always say is the farmer's first priority is to feed their family, to feed the fiscus, and to feed the soil. And all those in an era of sustainable development goals have to be met, because otherwise there will be no balance. Now, when you're looking at for-profit and not-for-profit, I think we all need to be social entrepreneurs. There's something that you must give for nothing, but there's something that you must earn so that you stay alive. So we need to cut a balance. But we can't all do things for not profit, and we can't all be extractive. The biggest dilemma now is the discussion on seeds. My grandparents used to select their seed, preserve what is good, and take it back to the land. We wanted more yield, so we invested in hybrid seed. And it meant that to go to the land, you need to buy the seed. Now, the challenge we have in Africa is that this is a $4 billion industry that is led by multinationals. What that means is that those who want to replicate the seed cannot even penetrate that industry. And as policy advisors, we say that's not fair. Surely something is wrong. Access is key for food security, as Dean Conway said. So we need to change the game. We need new rules for that game, which will allow access. And that's where you start breaking the commercial model to not for profit, because these farmers are farming for subsistence first and foremost, but they also need that extra income so that they can buy what they don't produce. So surely you have to meet them halfway. And that's where I think you need the dialogue platforms to say, no policy is win-win for all, but can we have leaders who realize that there's got to be equity, there's got to be fair play, but there are basic justice issues that have to be respected, and that's where you draw the line. That would be my take, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. I just have a question. I'm not an expert in the field at all, but I do wonder if you have a stance on the role, if any, of GMOs in the, development of a sustainable agriculture and a hunger-free world.
Yeah, I'm glad I gave the example of seeds because that's the burning issue. Which type of seed? I spoke about my grandmother who had her own backyard selected. We moved to hybrids. My own country, Zimbabwe, is one that had 90% coverage, farmers that had taken up hybrid seed, and productivity went up. On GMO, we are saying there are rules of the game. As an organization, we say, avail the knowledge, and that's why we upload information on GMO on our website, but make sure there's scientific evidence to back up a position. And most important, make sure biosafety principles and protocols are in place to protect the people. Safety first, affordability, and nutrient-dense food. Yeah. Now, there are examples. We've got South Africa. That's one country as far back as 97. They fully embrace GMOs. And as I speak now, 90% of the white and yellow corn grown in South Africa is BT. We call it BT maize. Burkina Faso is an interesting case. That's one country that said yes in 2011. Close to 70% of the cotton, not the food crops that they grew, was BT cotton. But what was interesting is that the farmers realized that of the 30% in 2012 that hadn't used BT cotton, the yields were higher. So they were misinformed in what was in it for them, and they dumped it. But as a country, they are still pro-GMOs. So we are saying, avail the information, allow the policymakers to know, make sure there is biosafety protocols in place, but let those farmers who want the choice and they have the right enactments in their legislation that allows them to do it. But make sure people know what they are buying.
Hi.
I thought you were going to sing.
I need my chorus for that. I love your outfit, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous. And you're inspiring. I'm so happy you're here. It's really great to see African women do what you're doing. My question is, I'm a little short, okay. You talked a little bit about how clearly it's important that youth should get involved. I heard in your story, well, just in reality, most young people want to go into the city and, work in business, become a lawyer or whatnot. I guess I want to know, what is your organization doing to incorporate the importance of farming in the primary education in Zimbabwe?
Great question. My dad would just embrace you and say, you know what? Hard work don't kill anybody, and the first laboratory is the farm. It's said we used to have agriculture as part of primary school education, and as a subject, they still have it in high school, where you write your high school certification when you opt for agriculture. But we used to have it previously as compulsory education, primary education. But what this has done is that the kids at school have turned away from it because the teachers started using it as punishment. If there's a plot that needed weeding and you were not in class, you were sent to the agriculture class. So, and because we use the hand hoe and you're out in the sun without a sun hat, no water at times, kids say, I'm not getting out here. And because our farming has resulted in poor farmers because we have not invested in the tools they need for good farming, no kid wants to go in there. But it's changing now as we modernize our agriculture and show that people with college degrees now want to farm. They're now saying, okay, if they're making money, then I can go in there. But we're saying we need to bring dignity to the profession of farmers. These are people who feed us. So the minimum we can do with our policies is to create a conducive environment for farming. What does that take? Make sure they are farming in the right places where they've got the natural resource base, the water and the good land. Make sure they have access to input and credit that will allow them to get the right technologies for farming, but create markets as well. Free markets that will allow farmers to access their inputs and give them an incentive for safeguarding the environment. Because for as long as they plow in and protect the soil and no one benefits or gives them any reward for that, they will be extractive and will end up with denuded soils that don't give back to our crops. So we are saying bring dignity to the business of farming. Then young people like you will be proud farmers that will feed Africa and the world. And I strongly believe Africa can feed the world if our policies are right.
Well, thank you, Maine Law and Kathy Lee and Dr. Linda Way. And the one thing I learned about justice for women is the big idea is that afterwards, that people will be stimulated with new ideas to attack whatever it is that was brought to us. And so hunger has been around Maine and around the world forever, and I appreciate that you identified it. It is poverty. And Maine legislators, and Maine city government and state government have been informed, they're educated, and they know the statistics and the data. They know that the hunger problem is poverty. It's not new to them. However, there hasn't been much change other than finding out how to get food through a food pantry and so forth. And I'm even told that some parties are afraid to talk about that. And, you know, at one point women couldn't vote and men were afraid of it, but we kept it up and we ended up voting. So we still have to do the right thing regardless of what party is afraid of doing something different. But we talk about the 1 in 4 children, and I'll just say this, that 1 in 4 child that's hungry is attached to an adult. That 1 in 4 child and that adult are living in poverty. So if no one wants to do anything to help that adult, can we start, and shouldn't we start, and aren't you curious, what can we do for that one child? Okay? So that means we have to start teaching our children really early. From kindergarten up, what is poverty? Why is it here? How does it affect you, and how do you affect it? And how can you avoid it? That's just a comment, it's not a question. It says, I care about those kids. I care about my friends' kids that grew up in poverty and still in poverty, and now they're going to get the food box and having children, and those children are going to go get the food box. So we're going to foster that 1 in 4 child by giving them food boxes so they can grow up knowing that's the answer. So eventually they carry the food box for their mom, and then eventually they go get their own food box. That generational poverty, I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Hello, thank you so much. I work on a horse-powered farm north of here, about 90 minutes, and you mentioned the different research that's so important for lower emissions technologies on farms, and I'd love to hear more about the work that's happening in the countries you've been working with, or visions that you see for ways that farming can be sustained and also protecting the soil and reducing our emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I take the next one? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
We're just going to take a couple more minutes, so if there are more questions, let's get them all now, and then Dr. Sibanda can answer.
Yeah, I also just want to say thank you so much for coming to speak here. You're incredibly inspiring, just radiant. So yeah, I guess I kind of have thoughts and I guess a question at the end. But I've seen a lot of statistics going around that say that we do indeed have the capabilities to feed the whole world over, possibly even multiple times. But I think one of the greatest barriers to us being able to do that is the fact that the means of production to create this food is not used for all of societies everywhere, for the whole of the world, and rather the means of production are used to create profit for a few. And so I was wondering what your opinions are on the capitalist system and how it affects food insecurity. And do you think that we should perhaps move towards a socialist society where the masses control the means of production for the betterment of all rather than the profits of a few? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I have a parallel question to that, which is in your think tank, you come up with, it sounds like, really appropriate policies. My question is, to what extent do the governments in Africa, in the countries where you're working, to what extent do they get in the way? To what extent do they listen to you? Because there are a number of governments, I won't mention any in particular, where the governors are much more interested in enriching themselves and their families than in feeding hungry people.
I work with a population that doesn't have many access to resources here in Maine. Mm-hmm. And they're eating a lot of foods that are not real foods. Mm-hmm. They're not micronutrient rich. They may have the food, but they're also very addicted to the highly processed sugars and the carbohydrates. How do we begin to educate and ask the tough questions to get not just food to these people, but food that is nourishing and not addictive? How do we approach that conversation without being offensive, patronizing?
Thank you. I will take those. Okay. Someone's already. Yeah. That makes it 5. Please go ahead.
It was an honor to have dinner with you. Thank you for coming. I'm originally from Zambia, which is next to Zimbabwe. I just wanted you to, is there any social welfare right now in Africa, or is your organization addressing that now?
Thank you. It's all right. Let me honor the questions and follow the order in which I was hoping to combine them. Is there social welfare? It's linked to the profit and not-for-profit balance. Every African government I know of has a Ministry of Social Welfare. But the biggest actors in most of our constituencies have been the non-governmental organizations that have become the implementers of the policies that the governments have in place. Now, traditionally, you had the communal system where the village chief was the custodian of those policies. And where I come from in Zimbabwe, there was always a dedicated field that was the chief's field. He would have his own family plot, but in addition to that, there would be one where the community went in to work as a collective, as a cooperative, to make sure the harvest is put in a special granary that was for welfare cases. That is no longer happening for many reasons. The able-bodied people have moved away. There is a shortage of labor, believe it or not, in our family farms. People are struggling to get labor for weeding, for cultivating. Farming has become difficult. And the able-bodied who used to be doing the manual work have either gone to the mines, gone to the city, and when they are there, they are not healthy. And partly that's a reflection of the lack of investment in the public health system. Now, who fills that gap is the international NGOs. it's the government that has to create a policy environment that makes sure what we get as help is appropriate and brings dignity to the people. And that's where our network comes in. We don't implement policy, we are the watchdog that sort of blows the whistle to say, why is every household getting seed when not all of them are farmers? Why can't you look and match the intervention to the need? Why are people getting soy when they don't like it and they don't eat it, but just because you tick the box and say you've given it? Why are we buying food elsewhere, yet within the country you could purchase food that could help a neighboring community? Surely the mathematics there needs to be revisited. So we are just a voice that collects the evidence and brings it to dialogue. If we get answers, we take them to those who are affected by the problem so that the policies are informed by practice. Next one, what do you do when you've got limited resources? Where does the food come from? What do you do to make sure that there's nutrition security? That was the question. I think the fundamentals are, what does agriculture do for nutrition? For a long time, I was one of the proponents of the Green Revolution, but now I advocate for a rainbow revolution. I now know that that milk was good for me, those eggs were good for me, that meat was good for me, and that the diversity, the sweet potatoes, the cowpeas, the beans, and the vegetables and the fruits that I enjoyed were good for me, but they are no longer affordable. So my main message to policymakers is, can we flood the market with nutrient-dense food? And I'll tell you how to do that. Make sure that the seed that the farmers use, make sure the soil that the farmers are growing crops on have enough nutrients that can then be taken up by these crops so that we don't generate crops or empty calories for feeding people. We want nutrient-dense commodities. Let's also look at the price of these nutrient-dense commodities. That's your role as a consumer. Laws of demand and supply tell me that if we increase the demand, the supply will also increase. But currently, some of these nutrient-dense foods are for the elite. That's why they're expensive. But surely we can bring the price down by stimulating the laws of supply and demand. All that is a policy game that our policymakers need to play. And one of the ways they can help us is when there are big agriculture programs, particularly for us in Africa. We are saying, can you go back to that investor if you've taken a loan from the World Bank? If it's about increasing corn yields, go back and tell the investor that we now know of protein maize, a special seed that has been bred to double the protein content of the corn. So why are we opting for the ordinary seed which has low protein? Go back to the investor and tell them there is now zinc fertilizer which carries zinc, which can be taken up by the plant, and it ends up in the commodity, and that's a natural way of fortifying our crops. Also tell the investor that there are a lot of leakages in the way we do our agriculture, right from the cropping, the storage. Up to 40% of the losses in African agriculture are in the production cycle. In Africa, we are wasting. There are leakages of nutrients and leakages of yield. Surely we can plug that. But the scariest statistic I've heard is on aflatoxin, whereby we are producing contaminated groundnuts, contaminated maize, and part of that aflatoxin contamination has been attributed to causing cancer. The decoupling of health, agriculture, and nutrition has landed us where we are now, and we need to plug those holes and create a community where medical practitioners speak to nutritionists and speak to farmers so that what we produce is nutrient dense and we should be thriving for a healthy community, not just more money in the pocket. So there are many ways that we can make sure we design our agriculture programs so that they don't just do for yield, they do for income, they do for nutrition. But the biggest challenge is education. Not the college education my father Majele wanted, but behavior change. We all at times know what to do, we all know what to eat, but changing behavior is tough. So we have a job there. It's not just educating the mothers, it's the whole family. We can do something. And there's a close link to what you ate in your mother's tummy and the non-communicable diseases that we're facing. Hypertension, diabetes, all that can be linked. And sadly, it's the stunted children who are showing high propensity for diabetes, for obesity, and hypertension. So surely we can reduce our health costs by investing in agriculture and doing agriculture that's for nutrition. To what extent do governments listen? Well, the beauty at FunPan is we have them in the puzzle, we have them in the table, and we hold them accountable. Whether you decide to close your eyes, you say, well, you were there. And advocacy is about bringing evidence, giving you the evidence, giving you a place on the table to tell us why you've chosen to do A instead of B. And when you've taken your B stance, we don't make you an enemy. We keep you as a friend. And one thing I know is there's nothing as good as keeping your enemy guessing that they are a friend. You can always go around the corner and say, what's this all about? Then there was the low emissions. One of the things we are pushing for is conservation agriculture. We have been taught as part of the Green Revolution, deep plow, but one thing that we know now from science is that as you deep plow, you are emitting carbon which was kept tight in the soil, and that is contributing to greenhouse gases. So where you can get the implements for precision farming, minimum disturbance of the soil will conserve. Other thing is cover. We have mixed crop livestock systems whereby people would rather harvest, cut, and carry the residue so that they feed their livestock. So we're trying to promote a balance, bring the livestock to the field so that they deposit the cow dung, the urine, but more important, the grain is harvested by the animals in situ and providing cover that will minimize the emissions that can come in. Then also basic rotation. These are things that as we push the Green Revolution, as my nephew Moses was planting the land, he just wanted profits. But now we see that there's damage, but he can only adopt conservation agriculture if we finance him with new tools for precision agriculture, if we equip him with the knowledge, and also if we provide the livestock that he has sold off to finance his health bill. So it's complex, but it can be done. How do we abandon the capitalist system and go back to... I go back to St. Mary's. I think there was a gentleman there when we were at the nutrition center with the hunger fighters. He said, you know what, we need a cooperative system. And at that time, I can see nodes. I think the sad thing we have in Africa is that cooperatives came at a time of socialism. I don't want to name the country R, but it was associated with all the things that were happening there, and people said, no, one man for themselves. But where we find where there were cooperatives for farming that were linking the whole value chain from inputs to the sale of commodities, they worked. But where it was introduced in the whole smallholder farming sector, it was work as a group, go and plant in everybody's field, share everything you got, and there was no equity. So I think a well-crafted system that is informed bottom-up and is well understood by the actors and has been modeled right. The biggest challenge we have in Africa is everyone comes there with prescriptions. And one thing we've been teaching our constituents is ask where has it been done before. I'm happy to have been learning here because I'll say, I'll take you to the people who are doing this. I'll take you to the Good Shepherd Bank and you'll see them. I'll take you to the St. Mary's community. I'll take you to the rooftop gardens. I'll take you to Betty and Mufalo. They will tell you what to do. And I think that's what we need, sharing of best practices, because we have the same problems. And surely the solutions you have can take us halfway. All we need to do is to adapt them to our local conditions. And that's how learning goes. And that's what I've enjoyed about being here.
I can't tell you how many girls approached me afterwards at Deering, at Waynfleet, at USM, at Tree Street, and said, I want to be her when I grow up. Let me close by bringing it back to Maine. The statistic that the dean mentioned, 1 in 4 children in Maine is food insecure, that took my breath away when I first heard it. Because that means for anyone who has school-age children, when your child brings home the picture, the class picture, 25% of the kids in that picture don't know where they're going to get their next meal. I mean, that's really shocking. According to a recent USDA report, 208,000 Mainers currently experience food insecurity, and that number is growing. A disproportionate number of those Mainers are women. As the dean said, we now have the 3rd highest rate of very low food security. Mississippi is ahead of us. We don't think of ourselves that way. And as Dee told us, and as Dr. Sibanda told us, there's one thing that all these Mainers who are food insecure have in common: they're all living in poverty. The number of children in Maine living in extreme poverty has grown 50% since 2011. All week long, we've been hearing about food insecurity experts, from food insecurity experts who've been describing the challenges that they face here in Maine. And I've been struck by the fact that those are the very same challenges that Dr. Sibanda is describing in Africa. It's the same. The problem is the same. We don't think of ourselves that way. Dr. Sibanda talks about hidden hunger, that is not a lack of food, but a lack of nutritious food, and stunting, that is one of its most devastating effects, impaired cognitive development in children. Well, hunger in Maine is hidden also. Children are malnourished here also. Another fact that shocked me is to learn from the USDA and Health and Human Services data that for my son's generation, the rate of stunting among children in the United States was 13%. It's like Africa. We need to apply some of what we've learned from Dr. Sibanda this week. Her strategies for engaging policymakers, for developing sustainable policies, for holding leaders accountable, and for lifting people out of poverty. She's described this mapping that they promote in their organization as good policy, which results in getting the right responses to people that will not only feed them today, but help them lift themselves. So for the 5th year in a row, Justice for Women has brought an extraordinary leader from the developing world to Maine. We've learned so much from these women, and we've had an overwhelming positive response in smaller meetings as well as to this lecture when it happens every March. We cut off registration for this lecture at 720 people. Afraid we wouldn't be able to accommodate everybody. To me, Justice for Women is a public-private partnership in the very best sense of the word. It's what can happen when the private sector supports our public educational institutions, programs like this. But I have to say it, Dean Conway needs our help to make this program sustainable and an annual event. We've grown the Justice for Women endowment from zero to approximately $270,000. We need those of you who can to reach deep into your pockets, but also know that no contribution is too small. We need to get to $475,000, and we need your help. For anyone who happens to have a checkbook with you tonight, I will ask for your checkbooks. Feel free to stop by the Justice for Women table, make a contribution, pick up your Justice for Women bag at the same time. The bags that you see out there were made by the women who escaped prostitution and who now are in the program that's led by last year's Justice for Women speaker. So those women made those bags for us. So please, get one. 100% of the proceeds, by the way, go into the endowment. There are also several other tables out there that feature just a few of the very many good programs that are going on here in Maine. So stop by on your way out, take a look. I urge you to learn about them, sign up to volunteer, and contact your legislator and ask, what are you doing for food insecurity in Maine? So I want to thank all of you, and stay tuned for next year.
Love to manhandle people. Thank you for that impassioned plea for support. I promised Kathy, or threatened her last year when I met her, that I was going to institute a Courage is Contagious Award. Kathy Lee, you are the inaugural recipient.
Thank you. Oh, that's so nice. I can't believe you did this.